Hey, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. So this is the result of yesterday's work. Would you come and have a look? So this is a desk that Beth will have her back against the wall, and she'll come in and this will be her protected area. So there is some outside storage here in one of these cabinets. Look, now that's for the tall stuff. If you see on the other side there's another one there, so if we have our tabletop computer, probably we would be able to put the tower there. And I've gone over and done the filling on this. Now this is where you really miss having a simple hand tool like a palm sander. I looked at the palm sanders and they're the ones that you have special. I know that I can butcher a piece of sandpaper on there, but they're the ones that have that pad that you need, the actual piece of sandpaper that's made for it. So and they're expensive, 5,000 or more. So I'll have to pay the price and do this by hand. Now here's the drag, and this is not starting with the complaints. It's not meant to start with complaints, but this, see, look, this is the best. This is the best that I can get. Can you see that, Beth?
Yeah.
So this is 100, and what happens if you actually have to use this? See, this is not sandpaper. This is waterproof abrasive paper, what we call wet and dry. And this is what happens. Look, you can't fold it. So if you try to put it onto a block, which would be the normal thing to do, very quickly it ends up broken. So now there is some, I've been very sparing with the filler there, but it will still be quite hard work to get that off. The other thing, I wanted to round off the edge. Here, so I used my planer, which is a brute force way of doing it. Oh, how I wish for my router, in which I would just put the appropriate bit on and scooch it around the edges like that. And when I'd filled it, the hard work would be in filling, and then the easy work would be in just taking the palm sander and just taking it round. Now, what I like to do with this, it's a very simple construction. It's just a series of three boxes on a tabletop, and I've worked it out so that this is all, rather than have it in two pieces, this has all come out of an 8x4 sheet with a little left over. Okay, so it's very strong. Now at the front, this will be what I guess they call the privacy panel, or so that it doesn't show the person's legs. If the person is sitting there, someone is over there, and they're on a sofa or something, then they'd be looking at the woman's skirt. So that's what, and that will go along the front here. Now what I like to do with these is, instead of it just being a flat piece, I like to come and take. Now obviously this is 3/4, so it's pretty strong, but I'll take this piece now, I'll put it onto the edge, and I'll do an edge like this. So I'll pin a shaped piece, one piece in one piece, and take it almost right to the edge, which also will mean that I don't have to do quite as much work on the actual sanding down there. So I'll be able to get away with that. I'll just use the file, and I'll cut a piece so that this has a nice raised edge in it. I'll give it something of a cheapo custom look, and it will be nice. Now in the past, for some of the desks that I've made, I've used I've used the small stainless steel bolts. They're not bolts, they're actually self-tapping screws. For certain kinds of decorative work along the front here, I've used those, and it looks very nice. Lately I've started using the rivets, and the rivets of course lie flat and they don't interfere with work being done on the top, but they do once everything is painted and you drill very carefully. You can put a rivet in there and it's purely decorative, and it gives the whole thing an added appeal, is what I found. So that's my intention here. I'll probably do some kind of a little pattern on the top or around the edge. When it's all painted up, if you go around and you do, say, every 6 or 9 inches, if you were to drill and put a rivet in, it actually lifts it and gives it a custom look, and then people admire it and wonder how you managed to do that. Now, as I've done here, I've lifted this and put this in as an extra panel along the front. That will leave me quite a bit of waste with this piece of ply. So I'll use that by going around, and here I'll put a little panel in there. Now all of this can be done with the simple tools. Let me show you what I've actually used. Now, the biggest luxury I have is a planer, but because I'm working in plywood, it's not actually very workable. I've managed to use it on a couple of times, but really it's not that much use. This I've used, of course, a lot. Now, let me just give you, I'll talk about that in a second, but these are only very basic tools. They're only very basic tools. Let me get down so that you see me and the tools, so I'm talking. So we're looking at a square. You must have a square, must have a pencil, hammer, and for the smaller nails here, look, this is for fixing into the three-quarter plywood. So a little pound hammer, a scraper, which as you can see I've really used a lot. This I use more as a straight edge than anything. Must have a good chisel, and a couple of files. Somebody said, are they files or rasps? And if you look in the dictionary, you'll see that there's not a huge load of difference between the two. Now, because I haven't been on the tools for such a long time, probably going on for 2 years now, my tools are on loan somewhere, and I don't have the receipts for it. So this was the only saw that I could come up with, and because I've got the power saw, this has just been to take off the edge of some of the trim that I've used. A brush and a couple of brushes, and well, that's really about it. So you can make something quite stylish. You can make something that doesn't look like soap boxes put together, and you can do it with fairly simple tools. This would have been put together in probably 2 days, if at the very most in 2 days, and a much nicer job than this. As it is, I've used the expression polishing a turd. That's because none of these edges are straight, so when you put the trim on, there are gaps. That's why you need a lot of filler. You wouldn't need very much filler. And here I've had to go with what's available, and this is what comes as filler. It's hard work. If you look at this now, I'll show it to you from the beginning. we're looking here. Come and look at this bit close up. You can see that I haven't exactly gone crazy with putting in this body filler, but look. Now because, so you can see that the filler, it doesn't give up easily. It doesn't immediately surrender and say, oh no, sandpaper, get smooth. No, it doesn't do that. On the edge here where I've gone over it and taken off, I've angled it off, but it still leaves two edges. I'm trying to make a bullnose, okay? Now, once again, if I had even the right sandpaper, I would be able to make this in no time flat. But because this is meant to be used with water, and I'm hardly going to use water with wood, it's made to be used on metal. So it gets clogged up very quickly, and it's quite expensive. Now, apart from anything, this is heavy on the hands, so all around this has been much harder work than, not more difficult, just been harder work than I would have hoped for. But that's one of the things that comes with working with very limited tools. Now I am going to go into later, when you see what can be done with this, I'll go into how to visualize it. That's the important thing. You have to have a vision, not to get too grand on this, I know it's just a little office desk, but you have to have a vision in your mind as to how the thing is going to turn out. And I've showed you in other videos how to work upside down. So the first thing that I did was what you might think is the last thing that you would do. I made the top. Now the top tells you what the desk is going to look like. Once you have an idea on the desk top, then you can make the boxes that form the base, and that's all they are, is just boxes. Now people tell me, I'm always very surprised at this, people tell me when I say, well, you have to be able to visualize something, and supposing it's a let's say that this is a box. I mean, it's a rectangle, but it's a box shape actually. So you've got this, and you need to be able to visualize this, and you need to be able to turn it round in your mind any way. You need to be able to see that in every way. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, no, I couldn't do that, I can't visualize like that, let me ask you, if you're sitting there alone, think about your mom or your dad, okay, or your wife or your son or daughter. Did you think about them? Did you get a picture in your mind? Could you turn that picture around? Could you have them stand there in front? Could you have them turn around? Could you see them walking? Could you see them running? Could you see them coming up and talking to you? That's visualization. It's happening in your mind, in that space that's around the brain. I'm not a great lover of the idea that we're brains. You are able to visualize that. Now, one of the greatest scientists the world has ever known was Tesla. And Tesla was reputed to have been able to design an electric motor. There's the electric motor. In his mind, visualize every aspect of what needs to be done. Now, that's not so difficult as you might think, because if you think about it, I had to visualize this desk. I had to visualize it was going to be 3 boxes. We're up against the dogs again. I need to kill a dog, somebody's walking through the yard. So he was able to visualize this motor and have it working in his mind. And then he was able to keep it running as a motor, keep it running, and then inspect it later for wear on the different parts. Now that's a man who had brilliant visualization ability, obviously. But you can visualize boxes, and I'll draw up some sketches which will show you how I visualize this. And it was not incredibly difficult, nor was it incredibly skilled. Okay, so I'm going to get back to work now, and Beth is going to stop sitting on the desk swinging her lovely legs, and she's going to get back to her work as well. She's on the camera. Thanks for looking in. This was a work in progress from yesterday, and I'll be showing you what's happening in another video.